Chapter 2, Section 3, Beginnings of Agriculture. What you will learn, main ideas. The first farmers learned to grow plants and raise animals in the Stone Age. Farming changed societies and the way people lived. The big idea. The development of agriculture brought great changes to human society. Her key terms are Neolithic era, domestication, agriculture, megaliths. The beginnings of agriculture. If you were there as a gatherer, you know where to find sweetest fruits. Every summer you may eat these fruits, dropping the seeds in the ground. One day you return to find new plants everywhere. You realize that the plants have grown from the dropped seeds. How could this discovery change your way of life? Building background, the discovery that plants grew from seeds was one of the major advances in the late Stone Age. Other similar advances led to great changes in the way that people lived. The first farmers. After the Middle Stone Age came a period of time that scientists call Neolithic era, or New Stone Age. It began as early as 10,000 years ago in Southwest Asia. In other places, this era began much later and lasted much longer than it did there. During the New Stone Age, people learned to polish stones to make tools like saws and drills. People also learned how to make fire. Before they could only use fire that had been started by natural causes such as lightning. The New Stone Age ended in Egypt and Southwest Asia about 5,000 years ago, when tool makers began to make tools out of metal. But tools weren't the only major change that occurred during the Neolithic era. In fact, the biggest changes came in how people produced food. Plants. After a warming trend brought an end to the ice ages, new plants began to grow in some areas. For example, wild barley and wheat plants started to spread throughout Southwest Asia. Over time, people came to depend on these wild plants for food. They began to settle where grains grew. As soon as people learned that they could plant seeds themselves to grow their own crops. Historians call the shift from food gathering to food producing the Neolithic Revolution. Most experts believe that this revolution or change first occurred in the societies of Southwest Asia. Eventually, people learned to change plants to make them more useful. They planted only the largest grains or the sweetest fruits. The process of changing plants or animals to make them more useful to humans is called domestication. Here on our map, geography skills, interpreting maps. One is the location of animals. Which animals were first domesticated in Asia? We see the horse, cattle, sheep, goats. Where was corn first domesticated? And interestingly, it doesn't say that anywhere here, right? I guess corn in an older way of corn doesn't refer to maize, but refers to wheat and barley, grains like that. That would be in this part over there. Domestication of plants and animals led to the development of agriculture or farming. For the first time, people could produce their own food. This development changed human society forever. Animals. Learning to produce food was a major accomplishment of early people, but learning how to use animals for their own purposes was almost equally important. Hunters didn't have to follow wild herds anymore. Instead, farmers could keep sheep or goats from milk, food, and wool. Farmers could also use large animals like cattle to carry loads to pull large tools used in farming. Using animals to help with farming greatly improved people's chances of survival. Reading check. Identifying cause and effect. What was one effect of the switch to farming? Moving on. Farming changes societies. The Neolithic Revolution brought huge changes to people's lives. With survival more certain, people could focus on activities other than finding food. Domestication of plants and animals enabled people to use plant fibers to make cloth. The domestication of animals made it possible to use wool from goats and sheep and skins from horses for clothes. People also began to build permanent settlements. As they started raising crops and animals, they needed to stay in one place. Then, once people were able to control their own food production, the world's population grew. In some areas, farming communities developed into towns. As populations grew, groups of people gathered to perform religious ceremonies. Some put up megaliths. Megaliths are huge stones used as monuments or as the sites for religious gatherings. The early people probably believed in gods and goddesses associated with the four elements: air, water, fire, and earth, or with animals. For example, one European group honored a thunder god, while another group worshipped bulls. Some scholars believe that prehistoric people also prayed to their ancestors. People in some societies today still hold many of these beliefs. Reading check. Analyzing information. How did farming contribute to the growth of towns? Summary and preview. Stone Age peoples adapted to the new environments by domesticating plants and animals. These changes led to the development of religion and the growth of towns. In the next chapter, you'll learn more about early towns. Let's go back and review the images. An early farming society. The village of Ch2 in modern Turkey is one of the earliest farming villages discovered. Around 8,000 years ago, the village was home to about 5,000 to 6,000 people living in more than 1,000 houses. Villagers farmed, hunted, and fished, traded with distant lands, and worshipped in special shrines. You see Ch2 here in Turkey. These villages used simple channels to move water to their fields. Wheat, barley, and peas were some of the main crops grown outside the village. Houses were made of wood covered with mud. Since they didn't have doors, people entered on ladders through the rooftop openings. Inside their houses, villagers made the earliest known wood bowls and cups, pottery, and mirrors. Some houses were built as shrines that had small statues of goddesses and large sculpted bull's heads. Analysis skill, analyzing visuals. How did farmers get water to their fields? Section 3, assessment. Reviewing ideas, terms, and people. A, define what is domestication of a plant or animal. B, make generalizations. How did early people use domesticated animals? (2A), describe. What were gods and goddesses probably associated with in prehistoric religion? 2B, explain. How did domestication of plants and animals lead to the development of towns? Critical thinking. 3, identifying cause and effect. Copy the graphic organizer and write. Use it to show one cause and 3 effects of the development of agriculture. Cause, development of agriculture, effects. Focus on writing. 4, beginnings of agriculture. Now that you read about the birth of agriculture, you're ready to plan your storyboard. Look back through your notes and read previous sections in the text of this one. Make a list of events and ideas you include in your storyboard, then plan how you will arrange these items. And on a personal note, I would say wait on these items until you're actually assigned it. There we go.